Oh, Cynthia's back. Yay! Okay. So, and thank you, Joe, for starting the recorder. You're always a step ahead of me. Okay, well, we'll come back to this one later. So, thank you, and good afternoon again, and welcome to the second session for today, which is also the second e-learning session for the second semester of Intro to Algebra. Again, my name is Helen Chen, for those of you who are watching this as a pre-recorded session and don't know who the heck is talking right now. I will be your moderator for this afternoon, along with Mark, who is back, and Joe Packham, who is a big supporter here for me. So, so for the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to be reviewing lessons 19.1 and 20.1 on solving proportions. And just to let you know that this is being recorded for later viewing if you need a refresher on the highlights of these lessons. Oh, thank you for that little background there, Shelley. I am indeed one of the 4 main authors. Okay, so we are presenting a series of 4 live sessions this afternoon. The first one was on proportional reasoning, which you all joined me earlier, and it's now over. You can see from the schedule now that the one in red is the one that we're in right now. And then we're going to take a 15-minute break after that and, do the next 2 later today. If you're able to join us for the remaining sessions, that would be great. And if you're not able to, you can watch these sessions at a later time. All you have to do, again, is to, click on the link that Joe sent you and press the watch session button next to the session that you want to access. Now, if you are watching, I'm kind of saying this for the people who are watching this as a pre-recorded. If you're watching this as a pre-recorded session and need to contact us for any assistance, just feel free to email one of us and we'll be happy to answer your questions. And we'll put up our contact information again at the end of the session, so don't worry about jotting it down right now, okay? Okay, going back to the first session, first slide. Okay, so here are the 2 warm-up problems that you did while you were waiting. Actually, Pat again did both of them for us, so thank you, Pat. So if you were here with us for the previous session, then these should look very familiar to you, which you all were there, so I know and you all have been so properly trained already to use sense-making strategies to solve these. But these were really put in here for, just to kind of reinforce the proportional reasoning session that we just did before this one, okay? Okay, so the goals for 19.1 and 20.1 are these. And again, I'm not going to, you can glance through them right now. But what I do want to say is that lesson 19.1 is still going to emphasize on the use of sense-making and visual strategies for solving percent problems. Even though students will now, in this lesson, begin to set up ratios and proportions to represent percent problems. Okay, and in lesson 20.1, the students are going to use more computational procedures for solving proportions, and also learn why the cross multiplication procedure works for solving proportions. Okay, so that's mainly what we're going to be doing today. Okay, now if you'll recall, this is from the warm-up again. I just kind of typed it over so we don't have to turn back to the first slide. In 17.2, in order to solve a percent problem, such as finding 30% of 80, as we see here, we help students develop these sense-making ways of solving the problem. And this is actually one of the strategies that I think Pat showed, just written a little bit differently in the warm-up. So you find 10% and then triple that, and that's how you get your 30%. Okay, so we are still, very happy if the students are able to do that, but we're going to push them a little bit further in this lesson. Okay. Okay. Now, so as I said, we're introducing a visual way to help students set up proportions, and we're going to be using these strips that I'll explain in just a moment. If you have, or if you have seen your materials for week 19, you'll see that this page is, pretty much the same as the one. I just kind of rearranged it so that the whole page shows up on the whiteboard. Okay. But what you have there are two strips. One is labeled A, and the other one is B. Okay. Now, in the student packet, these are actually not, the numbers are not labeled. You just have the strips, and I believe you might have the 80 and the 100% there. Okay, but nothing in between. Okay. Yeah, that is true what I just said. You don't have anything in between. Okay. So, but I labeled them here because I want us to save time. Now, take a look at strip A. Okay. So pretend for a moment, I know it's hard because our numbers are already filled in, but pretend that you only had the 0 and the 80, okay? Now, which means that the whole strip, okay, for the whole strip, 80 is the whole, okay? And that means that each one of these parts that you see is 1/10, because there are 10 parts, that each part is 1/10. So that means that we can label the strip in increments of 8, okay? And for the kids, it would be, using kid language. It's kind of like the times tables of 8, right? 8, 16, 24, all the way to 8 times 10, okay? And then for strip B, okay, if we have 10 parts and the whole strip is 100%, then we're going by increments of 10 here. Okay, and that's why we labeled it here. Okay, are you with me so far? Happy face if you are, sad face if you're not. Okay, thank you. Now, these strips are oriented vertically so that the percent of a number can be easily seen as 2 equal part-to-part ratios. Okay, now that the strips are labeled, we can see that the number that lines up across with 30%. Okay, so I'm going to find right here 30%. The number that lines up with the 30% on strip A is 24. Okay, and so we can write the proportion in here. Okay, we can write the proportion 24 out of 80 is equal to 30 out of 100, kind of like this. 24 out of 80 is equal to 30 out of 100. Okay? Now, what would be a statement that we can write to correspond to this? Now, this time you are given the proportion. So we can see 48 out of 80, which is right here. 48 out of 80. 60 is equal to 60 out of 100. Okay? Anybody? What would be a statement in using words that we can write to correspond to this proportion? Oh, hello, Tony. This is Helen speaking. Thank you for joining us. Okay, you can say that 48 is 60% of 80. Good. Or we can say, 60% of 80 is 48. And I have a suspicion that it's most likely the students, because they see the first one being modeled like that they'll probably use the same order of the words, okay? But both of them are fine, okay? Now for problem number 3, okay, what number lines up across with 40%? Just take a look at the strips, okay? Find 40% and what number lines up across with 40%. 32. Good. Thank you, Shelley. Okay. So what we can say is that 40%, okay, of 80 is 32. Okay. And so what is the corresponding proportion that we can write here? Again, I think somebody, the chat box is so busy right now that I think I barely saw somebody, I think, just saying, you just, write down what you see. Okay. And thank you for, I think maybe Joe is writing that right now. Okay, Shelley wrote it in the chat box. Thank you. 32 out of 80 is equal to 40 out of 100. Okay. And finally, for number 4. Okay. This one, I think really having these two strips here really makes finding the x easier, because you have to, although the strips are kind of flip-flop right now. Okay, so the 25 out of a 100, well, 25 you would have to find it right in between 20% and 30%, halfway in between. Okay. And then, so then we have to come across to strip A and find a halfway mark between 16 and 24. Okay? Yeah, Mark, as I was reviewing this slide for the, in preparation for today, I thought about that as well. I'm responding to Mark's comment about how he likes the percent strip on the left better. I think because yeah, we are preconditioned to write the percent on the left side when we set up the proportion. I mean, like, even without the strips. Like when we see a word problem that deals with setting up proportions, we go for, we tend to put the percent on the left side. Okay, but I'm just wondering if the students have not been exposed. I wonder if it makes any difference. But the other thing is, having them flip-flop around maybe is a good idea, because it makes them think that, realize that it doesn't matter which because they are, they are equivalent, that we have the equal sign, so it doesn't matter which one is on the left and which one's on the right side. Okay, so it might be a good thing. But you'll see later on the next page, and why don't we move on to the next page? Because on the next page, now I swap them around. I put the percent on the left side, and the non-percent one on the right side. Okay. So now these were just 2 problems that I took out. You actually have several more problems on SP3 and 4, but I wanted to just focus on 2 of them here. This is what you would see. Okay. A strip that is not labeled, only the beginning and the end is labeled. Okay, and I intentionally picked the same number because I wanted to save time. And then this strip really actually comes from the bottom of SP3 and SP4. Okay, what you do is you just have the students cut the strip out, and then they can just slap it right next to the other strip that's on the page to save them time. Okay, so now let's see, if our whole is 140, if this entire strip is 140 and there are 10 parts again, what increments are we labeling them? Okay, great. Thank you, Shelley. So you just take the 140, which is the whole, and divide it by 10 equal parts, and you get 14. So now we're basically skip counting by 14. Okay. So if it's not too much work, Joe, oh, thank you. You can label that for me real quick, and thank you for picking such a cutesy little font to make everything fit. Okay. Now, as Joe is labeling that strip, let's talk about what would be maybe a quick way to label the strip. Okay, she is going by order, but what are some of the ways that students might find helpful in labeling this strip? Like instead of going 14 and then plus 14 more, is there something about, oh, okay, Joe is saying that. Okay, so if you know that the whole strip is 140, maybe taking half of that is 70, right? So that you might be able to find a halfway point there. Okay. And thank you for whoever, Shelley probably is doing the other one. Okay? So now, if we're asked to find 20% of 140, Pat, would you mind filling out the missing numbers right here that I am pointing to? Okay. And Mark, would you please do 85% of 140 for me, please? Okay, thank you. So as we can see from Pat's work here, she put in the 20 out of 100 to represent the 20%. Here, 20 out of 100. And then the 140, which is the whole, and the unknown is the number that lines up across with the 20%, which we found out is 28. Do you agree? If you agree, please give me a happy face. Okay, now let's look at Mark's. Okay, Mark has the same strip here with the whole representing 140, except that now this time he's being asked to find 85%. So he had to look in between 80% and 90%, and we saw that in the earlier page, and find a halfway mark between 80% and 90%, and then look across. Thank you, Joe. Probably, and find what is the halfway distance between 112 and 126. Okay, and how did you do that, Mark? How did you find 119? Did you just add and divide by 2? Okay, half the difference and then add it on. Yeah. Okay. So any questions about this page? Do you feel that these strips are helpful to students in setting up these part-whole ratios? Okay. Thank you. Okay, on the next page, okay, these are more strips. But if you take a look at the wording of the 3 questions here, the 3 problems, okay, you'll notice that they're a little trickier because the missing part in each proportion is different now, and the language of the questions is different, a little different, right? So I'm going to ask for 3 volunteers, and after I give you the directions, then I will ask Jill to set up the timer for 1 minute, or maybe even, yeah, let's see 1 minute, and if there's not enough time, we'll give them a little bit more time. Okay, so Cynthia, if you would please do number, oh, Cynthia is gone. Okay. Shelly, would you please do number 1? Okay. Pat, would you please do number 2? And Tony, are you comfortable doing number 4 for us? Sorry, I didn't get a chance to talk with you. Okay, go for it. Okay, so now, so what you do is you label the strip, and if you want to adjust the size of the font size so that you can, fill in the little numbers in between, you can go ahead when you click on the capital A without the box. Okay, you will see like that you can change the size of the font in the pull-down menu, and then you can just do it that way. You can make the size of the font smaller. Okay. And thank you for setting the timer for a minute. Okay. Okay, that was the end of the minute. Do you guys get the hang of it, or would you like more time? If you would like more time, give me a happy face. Okay, Tony would like more time. Okay, so while Tony is doing that one, I can't remember who I asked to do number 1. Raise your hand if I asked you to do number 1. Okay, that was Shelly. Okay, thank you, Shelly. Nice and pretty. Okay. So, do you have your mic on? Would you like to speak and explain what you did, or would you like me to just talk about what you did here?
I can speak if people can hear me. So what I did is it was out of 80, so I divided 80 by 10 and got 8. So I knew that each of my little partitions needed to be 8. So I skip counted by 8, and I wrote in my numbers on the right-hand side. And then it said what percent of 80 is 32. So I found the 32 and drew the line, and that pretty much told me what my equation should be. And I could have even drawn another line down here at 100, I suppose, like I just did, I think. Nope. Hold on, I'll try again. And those 2 lines told me exactly what I should have in my proportion. That's what I did.
Thank you, Shelly, for the explanation. Now, let's take a look. Are there any questions about Shelly's work? Okay. Let's move on to Pat. What makes everybody, this is a question for everybody, not just Pat, but what makes Pat's problem more challenging than Shelly's? Sorry, go ahead. Shelly, I'm going to turn off my mic so you can speak. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so you guys are correct. The hole in the strip is missing. All the examples that we've seen so far, we know what the hole is, and then we just divide that hole by 10, and that's how we know the increments, that we are supposed to label. But the problem here with Pat's strip is that the hole is missing. But we do know a piece of information that's very helpful, and that is that 30%, okay, of some whole that we don't know has to be 15, okay? So if we know that this has to be 15, then 60% has to be 30. And 90% has to be 45, if I am correct. Okay, the numbers are a little mixed up, but yeah. So it's for every 30% that you are increasing by 15. Okay. So then we can start filling in the numbers, in between. So 15, then we go. Now we're starting to see, oh, okay, the numbers are going by 5 now. So then we're just really skip counting by 5. So what is my whole then? Yeah, that is correct. That you can just, now that you know that you're going by increments of 5, then you just multiply by 10 to get your 50, okay? So that makes it a little bit challenging. But, the kids, if they're stuck, this is the line of thinking that you should use to guide your students is, what can you do with information that you're given, okay? What additional information can we find out with what's given, okay? And just kind of, guide them through your questions, with your questions, okay? Does that make sense? Yeah, it is like solving a puzzle, okay, with some pieces missing, okay? All right, and then Tony's problem, which, let's see. Okay, so 60% of 180 is what amount? That one, is probably more similar to the previous examples that we've done. Okay. All right. This one. So now we are moving into lesson 20.1, I believe, right? And I'm not going to do this one right now with you, but the intent that I was going to have you guys just draw some lines to match the properties with the rules. In the student pages, there is a kind of like a template with all the properties listed, and then the students can take notes and write down some examples of each of the rules, the properties, okay? The one that you have one that's already completed along with examples in TP4 of your week 20 teacher pages, okay? These are some of the properties that are going to be useful in solving proportions. The one property that I have intentionally left out here is the cross multiplication property. And we do give a suggestion in the teacher guide that we skip the cross multiplication property until the students have been shown how the property is derived and why it works. Wow, you guys are just terrific. Look, whoever did that just boo, 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 boo while I was talking. Okay, so that was, you might do something like this similar, with your students if you want. What I've done before in trainings is I've written the names of the properties on on papers, and then the rules on other strips of papers, and then they have to just move those strips or papers around to match them. So it's kind of like the same idea. So you can modify however you want. Okay. There's a math background. Okay, this one is taken from the teacher guide. Okay, in the student pages, the students are given the steps for solving the proportion. Right here, they're given these steps. Okay, but this part, okay, the right-hand column is actually left blank. Okay, and then what the teacher would do is to go over this page in the student packet with the class. Okay. And here you can see that using mathematical properties, okay, and other proper algebraic steps, by doing that we can go directly from step 2 to step 6, and that's essentially what the cross multiplication allows us to do, okay. But you would do this with this page is taken from the math background, but the students have one that you would go over with them in class, okay? I want to point out, this is for teacher mathematical insight, okay? There's a mistake here that you might want to make a note of, okay? There's an error here. You notice that from this, let's see, statement, 1, 2, 3, the 4th row to the 5th row, we somehow managed to lose an equal sign. Okay, there should be an equal sign after this 1 over b. Okay, and we're also missing the b from the previous step. We haven't gotten rid of that, not yet. So just know that that is incorrect, and you need to make a note of that in your teacher guide. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to the next page real quick, okay? Now, we're not going to do these problems, but I would like to point out these problems in red, okay? Because unlike the other problems on this page, students might be confused if you look at the wording of these problems in red, that, the 65 miles per hour, they may not necessarily know that that translates to 60 miles over 1 hour, per 1 hour. Because if you look at number 1 or number 2, 5 pencils cost 45 cents. So it's easy for them to set up the rate 5 pencils over 45 cents. Okay, but here 5 miles per hour, it may not be so clear. So you might have to clarify that with the students and say, that means 65 miles per 1 hour, okay? And the same thing here, well, it's not the same thing, but here I want to point out that this is not a mistake, okay? This $ with a 55.5 cents. This is not a mistake. That was done intentionally. It's kind of similar to prices of gasoline at the pump. You know, even though we use 2 digits for our money system, the gas pump usually has the three digits, 3 decimal digits. Okay. So that's it. And and one more thing about, well, I'll say one more thing before I end the session, the slide, is that I do think that, in my opinion, I think it's easier to set up the proportion once the students have the rate determined. Okay. And plus, I think having the units here are important, and it helps them keep in mind, keep the numbers that they have to write in the proportions straight. So if you see that the pencils is supposed to be the unit on the numerator, that if they have this as a reference, then they can go ahead and set up the proportion correctly. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay, thank you. And we're 2 minutes over, but I'm very glad that you were able to join us. Thank you very much. And if you would like to participate in the next session, which starts at 3:30, which is about 13 minutes from now, you need to sign out of the session and log into session 17. Okay? And the room is probably already open if you want to sign in right now and do the while you're waiting activity. Okay? And Joe is indicating that yes, that the room is set up. And if anybody has any questions, Mark will stay on until 3:30 or a little bit before that to answer any questions that you may have. Okay. And Joe, how does the recording work? Are we because if there are any questions and Mark is answering the questions, we want to make sure that that's recorded, correct? So the tape is still, the recording is still going on right now. How do we deal with that? Oh, okay. So you will stay on here and wait till everybody is gone. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So I will see you in the next session that starts at 3:30. Okay. Bye.